Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for Seek Power Always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I am so thrilled to have my next guest here on the show, Reid, who is an award-winning author, keynote speaker, film producer, and for over 25 years, Greg has inspired millions of people to take personal responsibility to step into their potential of greatness. And as such, his life of contribution has been recognized by government leaders, foreign princess, as well as luminaries in education, business, and industry. Greg, welcome to the show.
Yo, I got to tell you, so whenever I hear that thing about the princess,
yes.
I was in an interview the other day, I go, what in the world are they talking about? And I went through the back of all these, like, you know how you get these little awards and stuff like that. And sure enough, a princess gave me something, Princess Catherine or something or another. How cool is that?
That's awesome. I love that. And you are so published and well-known. In fact, I was going to tell you, when one of my first mentors was Jim Bunch.
Oh my gosh, what a buddy of mine. Go throwback.
Yes. And so I was actually part of his original Ultimate Game of Life and did that whole thing for a year and started coaching with his part of his direction. And so it's kind of a small world where all the things come together.
Yeah, we go together like shabba-da-bobba-ding,
little Grease throwback there.
There you go.
Yes. So, and I know that we are both, I'm native to San Diego. My family's been here since the 1920s. And so you're San Diego as well.
Yeah, born and raised the mean streets of Del Mar, California. It was a rough life growing up along the ocean shore. Yeah. I always joke. I said, life was so rough growing up in Del Mar. One time we had low tide for surf camp and it just ruined my whole day.
Well, such a beautiful area there on the coast and making things happen. So I love it. And we got to reconnect again in a collaboration in the Impact book. So for those of you who are watching, I've got it shown on here. And we all put together these acronyms. I mean, you are no stranger to publication. You've had over 115 books, including 32 bestsellers in 45 languages. So wide and far reach as far as books go. Tell me, in the Impact book, your acronym is T.T.E, to talk to everyone. Why did you choose that, and why is that something that's so important to you?
Yeah, because everyone you meet will know something that you don't know. It doesn't make a difference where you're at. If you're standing in an elevator or on an airplane and you're sharing an armrest, somebody knows something you don't know. And so by reaching out and talking to everyone, you could glean some of their wisdom and life experience, and maybe you can apply it yourself.
Right. And you mentioned, too, in your chapter about with technology, right? People aren't really looking up from their technology. It's like they're not having as much connection as they have. How do you feel like people can kind of overcome almost this double layer of shyness of not actually reaching out to someone? And you also mentioned about how, as kids, we were told don't talk to strangers, but how that doesn't apply as adults.
Yeah, in today's world, if you really think about it, we can poo-poo on social media and all the new technology. And I kind of do myself. Look, I play both sides of it because I got a 9-year-old son. On the same note, I'm also realizing I'm being the ability to be able to talk to everyone from all walks of life from around the globe. So it's actually expanded my reach and horizons. I'll give you an example. I'm working on a new book. It's called The Secret of Happiness. It's going to become a documentary and a major book. And as I began this, I thought I had the answer of it all. And it was going to be happiness is a subtractive equation, not an addition one. Every time you add something, you don't find happiness. It's short-lived, but it's the subtraction of shame, guilt, remorse, toxicity in relationships. That's where happiness lies. And I was so excited. And I told this to someone from a third world country, completely out of my genre. And they said, that is such an egotistical way to look at things. And I went, wow, I go, teach me. And they said, think about it. In our culture, for us to come to America, that's the Holy Grail. All of our people in the village save up all their money so you can apply for the visa to come over to have that opportunity. And when I was that one person who got out and I got my first actual car on credit in America, my family celebrated like I won a gold medal in the Olympics. When they found out that I moved into an apartment that didn't leak and I had fresh running water, you would think I was the talk of the town. He says, so for us, the addition that adding safety, security, is everything, because you're just in a first world point of view where you have so much abundance, you can now afford to start taking it away. The moral of the story is I reached out to somebody completely out of my normal paradigm. And by doing that, changed the way I look at things as well.
Right. So how's that going to change the documentary as far as from what perspective? Because a lot of times when people create things, it is from their own perspective. So how are you going to include some of these other ways of looking at things?
Everything. Because look, I'm just a student. That means that I'm going with the student's mind. And I believe I might just be one step ahead of someone because I'm actually actively pursuing this. Yet, so many people want me to read their happy book or watch their happy thing. And I don't want to, because I don't want to pollute my own ideas, especially as I'm going forward. I want to learn with the student's mind. So we're talking to neurophysicists and scientists to find out that, is there a ROI on happiness? Is there a return on investment? Or happier people have less cancer, or maybe they have better jobs, or maybe better looking spouses. Because I believe there's going to be a correlation, not just to high five someone and feel good, but I believe there's an actual core root of happiness that if you follow it, you'll have a happier, more productive life overall.
Right. Well, and I know there's been a lot of things projected around happiness, about the difference between like happiness and joy. And are they because of external circumstances versus what's internal? I mean, there's so many different layers to happiness coming from different perspectives.
Well, 100%. That's the whole point of it. Happiness is a moving target, and it's different to each person, right? So for myself, I just woke up and said, boy, if I could jump on the Zoom and it goes great, I'll be happy. And they say, hey, if my assistant brings me coffee and it's perfect amount of creamer, I'm gonna be happy, right? So happiness is a moving target. And there is a difference between happiness, joy, tranquility, peace of mind, all those different things. So perhaps it's just the definition in which we give it.
Right. Well, and as a proponent of people having deeper conversations and getting to learn a different perspective, how do you see that, like, especially in like the last couple of years where there's so much division that's going on and censorship of like, if you don't, follow the same way of thinking and, whether it's in health or medical things and all of that type of stuff, how is it that we open up the dialogue to be open to other points of view?
I wish I had that answer, because that would solve world peace right there.
Why are we not solving world peace right now?
That's world peace right there. It's like, hey, Greg, we got 15 minutes. Tell us how to solve world peace and hunger real quick. Throw that out to us, would you? That's a great question. And the whole idea is, I believe, is by having open adult conversations. So, for example, right now, one of my best friends posted something on social media. And I mean, they're a close friend. And I said, I disagree. And now we're in a little friendly debate. But we're so respectful of one another, we actually having this debate because it's all on the semantic. And it's the same thing the other day. I was talking to somebody in the medical thing, and we had this friendly debate. And I believe where you can have a conversation without being agitated or angered is the sign of maturity. And so the answer to the question would be that.
Right. And I think it's important, of course, how you pose it. And if you come from a place of curiosity, or have you considered, right, there's different ways to have that conversation without blowing up the relationship. So I think that's important.
Well, again, it depends on both sides of the party. I disagree with that. If you have two grown-up individuals that are willing to have these type of conversations where they know you respect one another. So I think that's the biggest challenge. Most people seek information from people they have influence over rather than they have respect for. And so for myself, I only reach out to have conversations with people I have respect for because they've already accomplished. In one of my best-selling books, 3 Feet from Gold, I talk about the power of seek counsel and not opinion. Opinions based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, or inexperience, like your family, friends who've never done what you want to do. And counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. If I went to my family and tell them I'm going to write a best-selling book, trust me, they would have talked me out of it because they're trying to protect me. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell very good. I can't read very well.
Right.
Plus, they've never written a best-selling book. So I went to Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup, and said, how do you write a book? They said, sit down. Here's what you need to know, and give you counsel. If we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring opinion, that's the day your life would change.
Right. I love the perspective of Mark Victor Hansen. I had him and Crystal on the show, and just their power around their new book around asking. And, it's just, it starts this bigger conversation, right, about asking things and being able to look at things from a different point of view. So I love that. So fun. So what about, you talk about, I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on, you say that the most valuable lessons we learn are the easiest ones to apply. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I believe people overcomplicate stuff to make themselves look bigger than life rather than reducing it to common sense so we can all understand. So, for example, Mark Twain had a great quote. He says, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter book. It's very difficult to reduce what you have, your sound bites and your impact moments, down to the simplest terms. In fact, I wrote the first ever 3-page book years ago. I got to get it back out again because I took 300-page books and reduced it to 1 page each. And I realized that that is where the genius lies, because that's what people want. They want the essence of it without all the here for out thou big words and fancy metaphors. So
Right.
I believe reducing everything to simple. I'll give you one right now about like wealth and prosperity if you want to hear it.
Please.
When I was doing my book, it was called Wealth Made Easy. I was interviewing people worth $100 million to $1 billion. And I went to one billionaire and said, how do you make all your money? And he says, that's easy. Time plus land is wealth. I said, explain. He says, I look for a town anywhere in the world that's growing exponentially at 25% a year. Go on Google Maps, it's free. He goes, I look for Broadway, Main Street, and I draw a line out 8 miles with a pencil and I buy that land. He goes, I rent that land to farmers. They pay the lease, so it's free to me, and I get vegetables for years. And as the town continues to grow at 25%, eventually ends up on my plot. And since I'm on Broadway, Main Street, and I own the biggest amount of land, that's what I resell to the big box stores for 800 times what I paid $1 billion.
Brilliant. I love that. And I love that shrinking. Isn't that how we got Cliff Notes, right? It's like, okay, what's the bare essence of something? And I think it was Stephen King that actually said, one of the toughest things about being a writer is having to kill your little darlings, right? Because a lot of times we want to expand and do more, but it's more of the less is more type approach.
Well, I get in trouble with all my publishers because I believe in that and they want to expand. So what I do is I give them a 72-page manuscript and they blow it up to 250 pages. But trust me, the essence was already there, right? And I also believe that people will actually read books that are the easier to consume. I'll give you an example. I did this one. It's called The Millionaire Mentor. No big words were harmed and big font, and this type of a thing, right? And when I did this book, everyone told me every reason why this would never work. It's my first one. And I was turned down by 268 publishers, agents, and printers in a row. And the 269th publisher did it. But it was really interesting. They said you have to change the title, beginning, middle, and the end. And what's interesting, I'm trying to get to this one page, is that out of this book that was turned down that many times, this one quote from this book was shared 37 million times. It says, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal broken down becomes a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. You've seen it. Everyone's seen it. Bumper stickers, coffee mugs. That's my quote from this book that was turned down 268 times in a row. The moral is never let another person or yourself talk you out of what you know to be true.
They just may not be ready for your idea yet.
Well, if they were so expert, then they'd all have successes. Think about it. Right now in the publishing industry, 65% of all publishers went bankrupt the last few years, right? And the reason is they were doing things so old-fashioned, where Amazon and all these new technologies were moving up. I mean, if the old way works, then why is there only one bookstore left in America? If the old ways work, right? It's common sense, and yet people don't want to adapt. For example, if you took one of my favorite childhood stores, Toys R Us, the reason they went bankrupt is they wouldn't go with the times. Imagine if they started just like Comic-Con, Toy-Con. What if they became, the official ambassador for the Lego Olympics? What if they would have done anything to adapt with the times, they still would be a superpower, but they did it. Same as Sears, same as everybody.
Right. Well, even Blockbuster, right? I mean, everyone thought that would never go away. That's where you got your movies. So, yeah, it's interesting to see how that went. And then, of course, Netflix and all those things came in. So it just knocks those things out. So, craziness. So what about, talk about Secret Knock. How is it that is, you're known as, as the proponent of that, founder of that. How is that different than other networking groups?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a proponent of my own event. I like it. So, yeah, I'm a little jaded, I guess. But, yeah, it's a pretty cool place. You come hang out. So it's so funny. I started seeing all these events. Everyone sees them all day. There's, they put these little head bubble icons and they have the picture of the speaker and what you're going to learn. And I'm a fan of George Costanza opposite day from Seinfeld. And I said, what would the opposite be of that? So what if I did an event where we don't tell you who will be there or even where it's at, and we charge thousands of dollars and basically you can't go. And so we became, I think it was Forbes did it at first, and Inc., the #1 event in the world that you cannot attend. How's that for a change, right? And by doing that, we started attracting the most amazing individuals. And it's been going on for 15 years, sold out every single time. The next one's in March, and it's unbelievable. But the whole thing is you have to deliver way more than people can expect. For example, if you do a circus and you offer 12 clowns, you better throw in some elephants and lions and all these other things as well on top of it. And that's what Secret Knock's all about. Instead of coaches and teachers and mentors, we just bring in the actual person who did what everyone else is talking about. So for example, as you know, last time we brought in President Vicente Fox from Mexico, who told us, why he wouldn't go to war in Iraq. We brought in, a private Skype with Edward Snowden while he's hiding in Russia. This last one, we brought in Dr. Joe Dispenza. We brought in the top brain people who did a live brain scan on Gary Busey, the wild actor up in Hollywood. We just bring in the actual people. And by surrounding yourself with these significant and successful individuals, you can sit down and go face to face, knees to knees, and then duplicate that same success for yourself.
I love that, one of the things that really caught my attention in one of your projects is Wishman. And, I love the story of Frank and the first child, Chris, and, just making dreams come true. And just the bottom line of having, everyone can be an everyday hero. And wanted to know what is your connection with, with that project, and why is that just something that spoke to your heart to make it into a film?
Yeah, this isn't an overcomplicated thing either. We were at Secret Knock, and I was interviewing Frank Shankwitz, founder of one of the greatest nonprofits of all time, Make-A-Wish Foundation. And at the end of the interview, it was just normal. We were just getting ready to get off stage. I go, hey, Frank, before we stop, I go, what was your wish? And he looked at me like I had two heads. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're the founder of Make-A-Wish. What did you ask for? And he says, well, no one asked me. And I says, well, I want to be the guy to grant your wish. What do you want? And he says, well, I just want my story one day to be told so my grandkids will know that I did something. So he signed over his life rights, and I said, Frank, I'm going to make this in a major feature film. Just know I've never made a feature film. But he trusted me, and it took 6 years of trials and tribulations. And when it came out in 2019, we actually made the short list, the final actual ballot for the Oscars. We trended for 1.5 years on Netflix, and now we're streaming worldwide.
It's so great. I love that. Love the story of that. And, it ties back into that talking to everyone, right? You just don't know what people's stories are. And until you actually talk to them, I mean, as a highway patrol, you'd wonder, how are they going to make this kind of impact, and the legacy and ripple effect of his own personal story, hits home. And I think people resonate with that.
Yeah. And the whole moral of that movie is that everyone can be a hero. You don't need to be a millionaire, a billionaire, or a sports celebrity to leave a positive impact in the world in which we live. Everyone can stop a bully from fighting. You can give a pair of socks to a homeless person. And where could we be tomorrow by actually taking action of kindness today?
Got it. Oh, I love it so much. So I have this random question I like to ask my guests, because I think that your environment that you create makes a difference in your experience of life. So we experience life differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office. So what is your favorite room in your home, and why?
Well, I have an incredible place that I live and work at here in San Diego. And the entire place, honestly, has different things. So, for example, we've got, I think, 4 or 5 guest rooms. And it's pretty cool because I call it Hotel Reid, where people come literally from around the world and they stay here, and you get a T.T.E, talk to people from all walks of life. I like the game rooms because everyone that walks in the door, the first thing I do is make them feel uncomfortable. And I put a ball in their hand, whether it's ping pong, a basketball, a billiard ball, frisbee, because how you play games is how you play life. And what that means, if I give you something, are you going to step out of your comfort zone? Are you going to take your sports jacket off and you're going to be normal? If we play, are you going to, pay your loss if you did? Or, are you going to cheat, God forbid, right? So I believe you can learn everything you need to know about someone in the first 8 minutes when you walk in my house, because how you play sports is how you play life. And then this office right here is pretty badass, to be honest with you, because I've created so many amazing projects with my team from this actual spot that I'm very excited about. In fact, the ones that are coming out next year are going to be my biggest and best ever.
I love it. So good. It reminded me, I have a friend of mine that says how people do a cold plunge is how they do life. And so a group of our friends have made just this funny observation of, do people just jump right into it? Do they need to have a friend? Do they just put a toe in and then they run out? Like, it's really interesting to kind of see in how people do anything, right? Is how that reflection is and what it looks like. So it's pretty entertaining.
I like that. And if someone told me once, a Gadillionaire, he says, how you run your phone is actually the way that you run your life. So for example, you have unopened 1,000 emails. Did you not clean up your apps? Have you not updated your phone? Is there a cracked screen? And to me, when I look at people, some people look at their watch or their shoes or their hair. I look at their phone, because I guarantee I could tell you everything I need to know just by that simple screen.
Right. Well, I remember when, before I retired from the police department, I've been in thousands of homes, and to see the correlation of how people create their home, and it has nothing to do with whether they are, well off or don't have a lot of money. It's just you seeing what's in there, and the chaos that's in there is a reflection of how much chaos is in their life and why the police had to be called in the first place.
Wow. That's yeah, there you go. I mean, that is brilliant.
Yeah, pretty interesting for sure. So, us both being here from San Diego, I know a big passion of yours is mentoring youth. How did that become your calling, and in what areas do you do that?
Well, I did not have a positive role model growing up in life. I had a few different fathers and all the different stuff. And so I decided when I got to the age I'd start mentoring youth in San Diego and become the dad that I never had. And so that's why I wrote the book, The Millionaire Mentor. It has nothing to do with being a millionaire. I mentor inner city gang kids in San Diego. And by doing that, it changed my life and my community. And now that I have a 9-year-old son, I get to do it firsthand every single day. And it's one of the greatest experiences I've ever had.
So so you're personally mentoring these kids?
I did for many, many years. And I still stay in touch with the ones that I, started getting with the court system back when they were 13 years old in the inner cities. But now they're all 30 some odd years old and married and got kids. And I'm working on my own son. I'm keeping it here at the house.
I'm curious, when you first started that, how did you build kind of the trust? Because I know a lot of, because I worked a lot of those areas when, as a police officer, just building that trust and knowing, like, is there going to be consistency and what do you want out of this? And, just all of those things. How did you open the door?
Well, I ran with an iron fist. What the whole idea is, if you didn't take action, if you didn't do something, I'm not going to fix you. It's not my job. So my job is to give you every opportunity, and it's up to you to actually do something. It's the same thing. It's how you play games. It's how you play life. So I'm going to put the ball in your hand. I'm going to teach you the game and thing. But if you choose not to play, or you choose to cut the corners, then that's everything I need to know about you, and it probably won't work out working together. I remember the first kid I ever worked with. Did I ever tell you this story? Like, are you leading me to this, or are you just sincerely asking this?
I'm sincerely asking.
It's very interesting. So the first kid I started working with, his name was Oscar, and he got in trouble, and he was in court for stealing a bicycle. Okay. And that's where I met him. And that's where I took him in my thing. Well, we built up a little bond after a while, and I took him over to Kmart, and we started walking around the bicycle section strategically. And I said, pick out any bike and you can have it. He says, I can't get a bike. I got no money. I got no job. I said, fine, let's leave. He goes, no, wait a second. Because what do you mean? I said, pick out any bike here and you can have it. So he wheeled every bike up and down, rode a test drove every single one. He comes over like a game show host. He goes, ta-da. I go, what's that? He goes, that's my bike. I said, absolutely, you can have it. He says, but what can I do? Like I said, I'm a kid. I got no job. I got that. I go, I know everything you can't do. I go, but what can you do? He goes, He goes, I guess I could walk dogs. I could wash windows. I could mow lawns. I go, isn't it funny? The easiest way to hit a goal is to have a goal to hit. So he made these flyers, put them all around town, really was successful, ended up making enough money. And a few months later, he was pushing that 10-speed out by his side, ear to ear. And I remember we were loading him the back of the car and said, let me ask you a question. I go, you feel pretty confident right now? He goes, best day of my life. I go, why? He goes, because I earned this. I go, let me ask you another question. He goes, what? I go, how would you like it if someone now stole the bike from you like you did to them? And he sat there and had that epiphany, that out of the body moment where he's changed his life and his local community so much that Channel 10 came out and did a report on him, the most outstanding young man who turned his life around. And the mentorship program that I met him through asked him to serve as the first ever youth advisory board member. And we went in and took his seat. They placed him right next to the cop who arrested him in the first place.
Wow, that's amazing. Part of why I was asking is I recently interviewed Mark Sutton, who is the co-founder of the second largest blood gang in California, and he did time for murder. And when he came out, he has changed, how the gangs work together. And, he did a lot of training it's called impact training, where he wasn't necessarily trying to convince them to get out of the gang, because just as you mentioned, they got to arrive at some of these things by themselves, right? You can't force anyone who's not willing to take the actions to do what they need to do. But one of the big ahas he had while he was still in prison was that learning that you are not your thoughts, right? And part of the gang culture is that it's very reactive, right? Something happens, you kill someone, you have some sort of reaction. But when you have that awareness, right, around you don't have to react in that way, and there's other ways to do it, and then what are the consequences, like the life that you're creating, it's opened up a lot of dialogue. And so there's a role now there that he does called a violence interrupter, right? And it's part of the conversation. So this whole thing about talk to everyone, right? Talking to them in a different way has them show up in a different way as well. So it's amazing just the influence, how one person can change a whole culture.
Brilliant. My brain was just spinning as you're sharing that story. I'm looking to see if I've got one of these books here. A guy named Bob Proctor, he was in a movie called The Secret, and I wrote a book together, and it was called Thoughts Are Things. And the same thing, we thought that your thoughts become realities, and we realized thoughts are not things. It's only thoughts backed by your actions become things. If thoughts were things, I'd be a bagel right now because I'm hungry, right? But when we're done and I go to Einstein's, well, my thoughts become reality by the actions in which we take. So it's interesting. People say, I can learn everything I need to know about you by the people you hang out with. And I believe I can learn every single thing I need to know about you by the actions in which you take. For example, if you say I want a Lamborghini but don't want a Lamborghini or don't have a Lamborghini, just means you didn't want it bad enough. You weren't willing to do the actions necessary to have that to come to fruition. So for me, I believe you can learn everything not by the thoughts but by the actions in which they take.
Right. I love that. And so what actions are you focused on these days?
Oh, so many things. I've got 4 or 5 new books coming out. One with my hero, Jim Stovall. He wrote a book called The Ultimate Gift. It's my favorite book of all time. And he and I are now co-authoring a book that's going to be released in 2022 by an amazing publisher called Sound Wisdom. I'm working on a new TV show and a major motion picture that I'm very, very excited about, and many, many other things down the line, not to mention Secret Knock, Prosperity Camp. It's so interesting. We've been locked down for 1.5 years. I'm like a caged animal. I'm ready to go. So let's get the band back together out on the streets. And I also want to say thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. And I know that our listeners are going to stay in contact with you. How can they do that?
Go to Instagram, Greg S. Reid. It's the easiest way because it's social media. It goes right to me. There's no filters. There's no buffers. Send me a DM. Say hi. The only thing I request is we don't talk about the weather, what your kids ate for breakfast. If you sit there and say, hey, what's a good business book I should read? Or, hey, who do you know over here? I'd be glad to make that introduction and open up the doors to conversation.
Perfect. I love that. And as I mentioned, our theme for this year is people who are being a force for good. How are you being a force for good?
By living my word. And that's very, very important. My son is 9 years old, and we have one single word that means everything, and it's called truth. So, for example, we have made an agreement, no matter what we're saying, if someone stops and calls them on and says truth, they have to tell the truth no matter what. And by having that and living your bond, I've realized a great young man this person's becoming. And it's also holding me accountable for making sure I say the right things, even no matter how hard it is. Like last year when he said, hey, Dad, is there really the Santa Claus? And I go, oh, yeah, he comes down. He goes, truth? Let me tell you about Coca-Cola in 1925. The deal is the deal, right? Yeah. But by having that type of communication, open conversations, the bond has just been spectacular.
I love that. So great. Well, Greg, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and being here with us today.
Absolutely. Anytime, call on me. Bye.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And to our listeners out there, I know you had a pearl of wisdom, something to take away. So please share this. Any questions, comments, please put in there and tag Greg or myself. We're happy to answer any of those questions and get this out into the world. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now.